a one-piece outfit. And I couldn't tell if it was blue or gray because the headlights, they're blue. So it was hard to tell
Oh, right.
if it was a blue or gray outfit, but it was like all the way up to the neck and all the way up to the cuffs. And
Okay.
I'm like, that's kind of weird. And then I look at him and I'm like, why is he wearing a Halloween mask? It's November. Why is he wearing a alien Halloween mask? And I'm looking at him and I'm like, and then I looked into his eyes and I go, oh, that's not
Oh, that's
bad.
no Halloween costume.
Because, and as I was explaining to you, Pam, when you look into their eyes, that's the neurological link. That's why you can't look away. It's like you can't look away.
Hi, everyone. Happy Freya. Welcome to episode 15 with the one and only special guest, Annie Owens. Thank you, Annie, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me here.
And Annie, this is our second meeting, so I would just like to. She's just an amazing human being with some of the most magical, ethereal stories that I've ever seen, and I'd love to share all of that with our guest today. Now, Annie is a Level II QHHT Practitioner. Again, she is we could say an ET contactee, and she's contacted star being. She has an amazing, unique abilities of connecting with the spirit world and spirit guides early on, which she's going to share here today. And what I really appreciate about her message is the empowering way that you go about in sharing your story and empowering others to do the same. So let's go into, before getting into one of these stories about your first memory with ETs and star beings, can you go into why is there such hesitancy in people sharing these stories? Like, is there still a stigma associated to it?
Well, I think when I was little, I would have come out and told my stories. Everybody would just think, wow, they got quite an imagination. I think the stigmatism is starting to change,
Okay.
especially now that the government has actually come out and said, hey, we have UFOs or unidentified flying objects we can't explain. I think it's starting to change to a certain extent. And the more that I talk to people, I see that it is changing on the stigmatism of being able to come out. I think it takes a lot of courage to come out just because you just never know how somebody's going to react to it.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for that. So as our leeway into your first contact, can you go over your first memory of when you made contact?
My actual first memory was kind of a strange one. My first memory was actually in the crib. And I didn't know at the time, because obviously I'm infant, that those were spirits. I thought they were regular people in my room. But then I also saw some that I used to call nice monsters. I didn't have a word for them other than they didn't look like people. And
Right.
so that was my actual first memory. I don't know why I remember it, but my family about it since I was little. I remember this, and a lot of times, you're just like, oh, story of a kid, but the actual first memory of being taken, I was 6 years old. And when I was 6 years old being taken, I just remember the fear and just total panic that I felt. Went into a total panic attack, just freaked out about everything that was going on. I remember being on the table and I couldn't move. I could only move my head, and I was looking around, and it was a small room, and it was just a single bed, if you want to call it that, examination table. And in comes in, and I'm just panicking. My heart's just beating just so fast. In comes in a white mantis.
Okay.
And when the white mantis came in, he probably was only about 5, 6 foot tall. He wasn't really tall. And he didn't feel like a spirit to spirit type of connection there. But when he came in, he had a very calming effect. And I was able to breathe again. I was able to relax again. And that is when the tall, white, alien, star person, I don't know what you want to call it, but they didn't look human other than they had the ears, a small nose, big eyes. But she was beautiful to me. I just remember just feeling just so happy with her being there. And then she was really good. She felt like a mother figure to me. And when I saw her, I had a conversation with her, and I told her that I wanted to stay on the ship. I told her I wanted to stay there. And she told me that I couldn't. And I'm like, please. And then she asked, well, why do you want to stay here? I said, Oh, so I'm sorry. It just says internet connection unstable. I hope you're coming in all right over there. But anyways, what happened was she said, why is it you don't want to go back? And I said, well, because they're mean there and they lie. So I've always had an issue with people who lie about things and people that
Meaning
are
on
mean
Earth, right? You're referring to Earth.
on Earth.
Okay.
As referring to Earth. I didn't want to go back to Earth. I just wanted to stay on the ship with her because she felt so much like a mother figure to me, you know. And she told me that I wasn't needed there. And in my mind, I actually went and checked everything on the ship, and there was no place that I could have been to work on the ship to do anything. And I just kind of resigned to, all right, I got to go back at 6 years old. So that was my first experience.
Oh, that's early on, Annie. Your first experience, and then there was another one later that you clearly remember.
Yeah,
Dating.
that was at 12 years old. That was at 12 years
Okay,
old.
so
And
that's
that one,
okay.
yeah, at 12 years old, I literally told my mom about it, the whole situation. And that was a little bit longer and more detailed experience that I remember. And that was, I literally, I was like, and I had two beings. Well, first of all, there was a blue light outside my window, and I kind of woke up seeing that. And then two beings that were like the typical short grays came walking through my wall, and they told me I had to go with them. And the feeling was, I think it must have happened already so many times that I wasn't in complete panic, though it was almost a feeling of dread, like, oh, I gotta go. And it's not like you have a choice. It's like you have to go, and you're gonna just do it. And so I remember getting out of bed, and one gray held one hand, and one gray held the other hand, and they literally walked me through the wall. And I remember it being so uncomfortable. It was like it felt like itching from the inside out. Like you cannot get rid of this itch inside of you. It was just so uncomfortable. And as I
Mhm.
walked out, they took me into the light. And I never saw the ship, I could only see the beam of light. When I
Okay.
walked into the beam of light with them, it was like an electrical jolt going through my body. I remember it just being like, oh, you're just really just tightened up and you can't move.
Okay.
Next, I guess it must have made me pass out because the next thing I know, I am literally standing next to a bed. There was two beds in the room, and they had a single post in the bed that kind of made the bed go up and down. But I'm standing next to the bed, and there was nobody in the other bed. But then the room was like it was like a rounded oval type room. There was not a sharp points or corners like what we have here. It was everything
Okay.
was kind of rounded. It had shelving that you can see just a very thin line, and you knew that they were shelved. I don't know how if they pushed them, how they opened them up, but I knew there was shelving in the room, and with these very thin lines, just totally, completely, awesomely built. You know what I mean? It was perfect. And I'm standing there, and there are two grays, and they were telling me you need to lay down, because they wanted to examine me on the bed, and each one of them had a tool in their hand, and I was freaked out. I'm 12 years old. I was freaked out. I didn't know what the tools did, but I knew what my body remembered. It was like this. The body remembered the feeling it was going to happen. I knew that one of them was going to go up my nose, and that's what freaked out because I knew the pain that it was going to involve. I remember actually raising my arm to the square, and I said, "In the name of Jesus Christ, you're not allowed to touch me." And as I said that, they stopped. They both looked at each other, and
Mhm.
then one left the room, and there was pocket doors. So the pocket door opened up, and he didn't like put a badge or anything like what we would to try to go out the door. It opened up for him, and he went out. When he came back, the same lady that I saw, the beautiful one that reminded me of a mother figure at 6 years old, she's now in the hallway,
Okay.
and they're telepathic. So they're not using their mouth to talk to you, but they can give you the feeling that they are feeling. And for me, when she looked at me, it was amusement. That's what I felt like. She was amused by what just took place.
Okay.
And she just said, "Come with me."
Okay.
And so she said, "Come with me." And as I walk out of this pocket door, there's like this glass window, but it was kind of rounded. And it was like it wasn't like a single pane. There was like lines in between it, but they were very thin lines where you can see it came together. And I don't know where I was at, but I had the feeling I was on a mountain and there was a small town because I could see lights down below, but it wasn't like a city.
Okay.
And as I walked with her, we walked into the control panels. The control area is the only way I can describe it. There was a lot of other grays there, they're working different machines with like lights that they were touching. And as we're there, she asked me, "What do you want to know?" And I'm 12 years old. I'm like, "What do you mean? What do I want to know?" And she goes, "Well, what do you want to know in like history or something? What exactly? If you had to learn something, what do you want to learn?" And I'm like, "Well, at the time, I remember hearing about the Big Bang Theory and how the Earth came together and everything." And so I said, "I want to know how the Earth was made." And she goes, "Okay." Well, she touches something on the window. Well, I thought it was window. All of a sudden, it becomes like a 3D holographic screen. And I'm like in the middle of it and I'm watching the universe and how it's coming together. I wasn't allowed to remember everything other than I knew everything had science to it. Nothing happened by accident. And so I went through more history with her. I don't remember what it was. And as a matter of fact, I asked her, I said, "Am I going to be able to remember this?" She says, "You will when it's time." And so I wasn't able to remember everything. I was only able to take the feelings with me when I left. And my feeling was, after I'd been returned, was everything that I've been taught about history is a lie. Because I'm watching the history, but we're only taught, and winners are the ones that write the history. So
Yes. Yeah.
telling you that's exactly what I was seeing at 12 years old.
Okay,
So
so this is this is just I want to just thank you for sharing that and your courage and bravery in sharing that, because I mean that's just a magnificent unfolding that happened to you at such an early age, and there was fear at the beginning when you were 6. Um, and sorry, I don't know if my mic is kind of coming in.
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, perfect. um, but that takes a lot of courage, because you went and you went on board the ship at the age of 12. You saw the history of the planet, you know, um, meeting I would say a benevolent figure, mother figure, as you stated, and kind of being comforted, and knowing you were safe on board that ship, and also
Right,
being allowed to ask any question, and your observation even at 12 to understand the mechanics of the ship. There's no, like you just open, there's no access card and like all these different things. So, I mean, that's truly magnificent.
right.
Just wanted to recap that and just kind of review it again, because that's people need to just, I think their jaw will drop.
Well, it's just, it's just amazing to me in the fact of, I see the progression of being so scared when I was 6 years old to now as an adult. It gives me a shock to my body when I see them, but it doesn't scare me anymore.
Okay.
So,
And did the white being that you saw twice at 6 and at 12, did she have any messages for you on board the ship? Did you ask for any messages, or?
she told me that she was assigned to me to watch out for me while I'm here.
Okay, hang on. Sorry, say it one more time. It cut off.
Oh, it's all right. She was assigned to me to
Okay.
watch out for me while
Okay.
I'm on Earth.
Okay.
So there's the connection. There's the connection with her. She's to watch out for me.
She's okay. She's your protector.
Mhm. One of them.
Okay. One of them. Okay. Okay. So Annie and I talked prior to this, and there was you've had a lot of messages, throughout your childhood and your adulthood, and continuously today, through spirit guides and, ET contact. Can you share with us, and this was a really eye-opening experience for me when you shared the story, the being on the lawn, if you could share that with our audience that day and what this being had to say.
Okay. Well, this actually happened a year ago. It was
Well, that's
before.
recent.
Yeah, it was a year ago.
Okay.
This happened a year ago, and we just got some couches, and I took it to the back porch, my Yukon, and my boys helped me unload it. And it gets dark early in November, so it was probably only about 5:30 at night, but it was already dark. And I pulled my Yukon around to the front of the house, and I was backing in, and my husband put in some blue headlights. They can see the lines perfectly. We discussed this, but you can't see anything else. It drives me nuts. He's going to change them out this weekend, but anyways, I was backing into the driveway and and I live out in the country. I don't live in the city. I'm very rural area. And as I'm backing in, I have a barbed wire fence to the side of my house, and I see a little boy there. And I'm thinking, okay, we're in the country. I do understand that, kids kind of wander all over the place, but it's dark, and this kid looked to be maybe 7 or 8 years old
Mhm.
by the height. And I'm thinking, why is he out here? But this is happening a lot faster. So I'm just slowing it down to explain it to you.
Okay.
But my mind's going faster than that. And then I'm like, why is he wearing a one-piece outfit? And I couldn't tell if it was blue or gray because the headlights, they're blue. So it was hard to tell
Oh, right.
if it was a blue or gray outfit, but it was like all the way up to the neck and all the way up to the cuffs. And
Okay.
I'm like, that's kind of weird. And then I look at him and I'm like, why is he wearing a Halloween mask? It's November. Why is he wearing a alien Halloween mask? And I'm looking at him and I'm like, and then I looked into his eyes and I go, oh, that's not a
Oh, that's
mask.
no Halloween costume.
Because, and as I was explaining to you, Pam, when you look into their eyes, that's the neurological link. That's why you can't look away. It's like you can't look away.
It's like
And
hypnotic.
yes, and you can't. And so I looked into his eyes, and that's when I'm like, oh, that's not a mask. And as soon as I looked into his eyes, he telepathically asked me, he says, do you want to know everything? And I'm like, yeah. Because as I told you, I've gotten to where I've seen him. It's a shock at first, but it's
Yeah.
not like I'm afraid. I'm not afraid.
Right.
And so, anyways, and the only way I can say is I looked at photos afterwards, trying to figure out what type of being he was. I think it would be closest to what Linda Moulton Howe would say, Edie,
Okay.
what she calls it. Edie. But anyways, as I look into his eyes, and he asked me if I want to know everything. I said yes, and he starts pulling me into his eyes, and I'm seeing galaxies pass by, and I'm seeing universes pass by, and I'm just like going. All of a sudden, I felt a really loud snap,
Mhm.
and next thing I know, I'm in my Yukon, and I'm looking around, and I put on the brake because I didn't know how long I was gone, because you're in that hypnotic where you look in their eyes.
Right. Yes.
I put on the brake, and he's gone, and I didn't hit anything, but luckily. But anyways, he's gone, and I'm like, okay, was that like a failed abduction? Did
Right.
he come here and try to abduct me, and I got away because I got afraid that I was going to hit something? I don't know. And so I put my Yukon in park and turn everything off. I go to the back porch and my kids see the look on my face. It's just like this look of like, what the hell just happened, and they're like, what happened, Mom? I'm like, let's get everything in the house first before I tell you. And so we brought everything in the house and they're like, well, thank you for not telling me we're outside. I would have been really freaked out.
It's like I would never go out again.
Yes. And they're all locking the doors, making sure the windows are locked. So anyways, that night I couldn't remember conversations I had with people. I had talked to a lot of different people, and even the conversations even with my family members, I couldn't remember anything. It's like that was just wiped. It was gone.
Mhm.
And then I started noticing that after that experience, it felt like I wasn't even there. I don't know how else to explain it. Almost felt like a robot. I would go to work. I would do everything that I need to do. I would come home. I wouldn't talk to people unless they talked to me first.
Okay.
And so my personality part of me, that was gone. It was like I kept telling my husband, I'm like, honey, there's something wrong with me. I'm watching all these different YouTube self-help videos, trying to figure out what's wrong with me, watching Dolores Cannon. I'm just like, what is wrong with me? Because I was literally felt like, and I was not a procrastinator, and I'm naturally a procrastinator. So that part of me was gone. That's kind of funny. But I'm naturally a procrastinator, and I was not even a procrastinator during this time. Anything that needed to be done, I would just do it. I wouldn't even think about it. There wasn't a thought. I would just,
Like it
and it
was an
was,
automatron, right? Like you said,
yeah,
it was just
yes,
mechanical.
exactly.
Okay.
And so that part of my giggly personality and being funny, that was gone. It was gone.
Yeah.
And it went where at Thanksgiving, I had gone to my brother's house, and he's like, even asking if maybe possibly I have problems. He thought maybe I was having marital problems or something because I just wouldn't talk. I was really
Oh,
quiet.
I think she's trying to help out there. Right? Like, Annie, come on now, you can talk to me.
Exactly. So, I didn't know what was going on. Well, 40 days afterwards, because I went ahead and journaled when it happened.
Yes.
And 40 days afterwards, I'm laying in bed. It's early morning. And all of a sudden, I hear a man talking, and the man says, hurry up. The alarm's going to go off.
Mhm.
And I've heard my guides before. I've actually heard my guides in conversations before. So I'm thinking, okay, they probably don't realize I can hear them because that's generally what happens.
Yeah.
And so then the weirdest thing is right after that, I heard my own voice. And that was kind of freaky. I hear my own voice and I'm hearing myself say, wait a minute, wait a minute. I need to balance us out or we are going to feel off. And that's when I'm just like, what? I'm hearing my own voice. Next thing
Yeah.
I know, I'm standing outside my body. I'm
Yeah.
looking at myself laying on the bed. I look at the alarm clock and I see the time and I can feel the energy of myself just coming together into the one to me. It was the other part of me that was gone, I guess, coming together. I just remember feeling so whole because
Mhm.
for so long I felt like I only had a part of me. And
Okay.
all of a sudden now I feel like I have all of me. And the next thing I know, I open up my eyes in bed and I'm like, did that really happen? And I look at my alarm clock and it's the same time that I saw when I was outside of my body. And I was so excited. I knew I was back. At that point, I didn't have a beat on where exactly I went, but I knew I was back and I was just excited. I woke up my kids that morning. I'm back. I'm back. I just going crazy. I'm calling up all my family members and my friends, and they're telling me, they had conversations when I was gone and they knew I was gone. That's what they told me. They said, I knew you were not there when we
Yeah.
had conversations before. And so I was just so excited. I brought back the knowledge of everything in the future, the happiness. We're talking about the happiness before all the other stuff that's going to get us to that point. But
Yeah.
I just remember I knew that the truth of everything was going to start coming out little by little. There was no stopping it. And I had that knowledge with me. And I just remember being so happy with that. And then over time, more information started coming of where exactly went and what I learned when I was gone.
Did he also give you the vision of the central sun that you experienced, that kind
Well,
of?
that's where I was taken. See, that's what I'm saying. The knowledge started coming back. It wasn't right away. It was all of a sudden, it's like, oh, and it's like the remembering of what exactly happened. I start getting bits and pieces. And I'm still getting bits and pieces. It's like one thing will trigger the knowledge of something else. And so that's what's happening. I get a little bit and then more, and then a little bit and then more. I already know what's going to happen after that. And so what happened was I was taken, and as I'm seeing these galaxies and universes pass by,
Because
I go,
this is a beautiful imagery. Like, take this though, because this is really pretty how you describe kind of like this cosmic oneness that you
right.
experienced.
It was all of a sudden I come to what only can be described as a central sun, big, huge. You can fit galaxies and universes in there. It is just huge. It's just glowing. It's just beautiful. But around the central sun was nebulous clouds. These nebulous clouds have all the different colors in it, the purples, the pinks, the blues, the greens, and then it had stars just sprinkled in it. It was like watching creation take place before my eyes because I knew these nebulous clouds, they were growing and then they were going to go outwards and they were going to help create more universes out there.
That's
And
beautiful.
so I was there, and I when I saw the central sun, I was just in awe of it, and I was taken inside of it. Now that was the interesting part because going inside of this central sun, it was neutral, but
Okay.
it was all knowledge. It wasn't like it was good, bad, and different. It was just all knowledge. Anything that I wanted to know, it was like information was just coming to me. And the one thing I was able to remember was I was watching my lifetimes play out,
Wow.
but I was really focused on this one because this is the one that concerns me because this is the one I'm dealing with right now.
Yes.
And and so I remember watching my lifetime play out in a holographic form. Like I'm watching a holographic play of myself and everything that I'm going to deal with and everything that's going to happen. And I kept watching it. I remember watching it over and over again. I wanted to absorb as much as I could to try to take it, bring it back with me. And so I felt like I was just watching it over and over again. Maybe that's why I'm getting bits and pieces as I'm starting to remember stuff that had happened. Because I realized when I was there that, and people have said it before, but it was more of the knowledge now that I know that this life is a play. We're playing out our parts and roles. A lot of religions and the one that I grew up with believed that you knew everything that was going to happen before you came here. And
Mhm.
yes, you did. You
Mhm.
got to watch it all play out and be aware of everything that's going to happen. And right now, we're just playing a part in the role of our play,
Yeah.
trying to be and become the best person that we can be. And
Right.
that's all we can do here.
See, I had to make sure we capture that, because that's the whole, the message behind that, and the imagery, and Shakespeare's, again, as you mentioned as well, that, we're all actors on a stage, and that this is a place, this big cosmic unfolding, that's occurring. So thank you for that. Okay, so now I wanted to talk to, because we focused more on the beings that are non-human, and I kind of want to shift the conversation to your interaction with spirit guides,
Right.
because you saw them early on as well, and kind of like how you experience that. We'll talk about that, and then we'll go into something after. But let's just talk about your interaction with spirit guides, and when you knew, okay, well, this is an entity, an energy that's
Right.
guiding me.
Well, when I was little, I was the type of child that would be like, "Mom, leave the light on," and she would get very upset with me. And why do you need the light on? And I kept saying, "There's people in my room. There's people in my room." And she didn't understand, which is kind of funny because I found out later on that my grandmother has the same ability that I do of seeing spirits. And
Yes.
my mother, for some reason, was not aware of it. Either that or she chose not to be aware of it. I'm not sure. But as a child, I would tell them that there's people in my room standing around, and it would scare me because I had no understanding, nobody to talk to
Yeah.
about this, other than just telling my mom, and she's, "Oh, you just got an imagination. You got imagination." It would get to where a lot of times I would sleep with my blanket over my head, and it would get hot. So you always have to make like a little
A
peephole,
little
fresh
pocket to
air.
breathe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the fresh air comes in and you can breathe it. And and I used to have there was a man that would stand by my bed.
Okay.
And at the time I didn't understand it because from my point of view of the way that I was being talked to, it's my imagination. I was thinking, okay, I should not be able to see these spirits
Right.
because nobody else can see them. Why am I seeing them? I should not be able to see them. It wasn't something widely talked about when I was a kid.
Mhm.
And so there was a man standing by my bed. He used to wear a suit,
Okay.
and he used to stand there and he would put his hands kind of behind his back, but he was looking outwards. He wasn't looking at me. He was just standing with his back to me. And I never understood that. And when I was a kid, I had my blanket over my head, my little pocket air, and I see him standing there, and I kind of close it off because I just didn't want to see him because in my mind I'm not supposed to be seeing.
Right. Because you were told that, and that this wasn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is my imagination. So I'm thinking,
Yeah.
what's wrong with it? And so I remember one incident actually that I had my blanket over my head, and he's standing there, and he turned and he looked towards me because what happened was I got hot. I'm like, okay, I need to open this up a little bit more to get some fresh air. And I'm like, I wonder if
Poor Andy.
it was later in the night. It was later in the night, and I'm just like, okay, I wonder if he's still there. So I go and I peek and I look to see if he's still there. And just as I did, he kind of looked down towards me and he just kind of smiled. And I'm like, ah! I'm so scared. I was scared. But I didn't realize it at the time. But the more he was there, the less the shadow people were walking around.
Okay. Okay.
As long as he was there, I didn't have to worry about any other beings or shadow people or anything else. It was like he was protecting me as I was sleeping. He was
Okay.
always there, protecting me while I was sleeping and keeping everything else away.
And people who may not know what shadow beings are, I mean, what's your interpretation of that? Just beings that are not looking out for your welfare, that kind of thing, or?
Well, what's kind of interesting is my youngest son is like me, and he sees spirits, and we've seen shadow people together. And so I always tell him, if you see, it looks like a person, but it's a shadow just walking across. Okay?
Yeah.
But if you see them and they just kind of walk right on through, then obviously they're not out to like watch you
Yeah.
or anything else. So I just kind of let that go when that happens. The
Okay.
thing that bothers you is when they linger and they're looking at you. And they've got to be other dimensional. It's the only way I
Right.
can describe it,
Yes. Yeah. No, that's well said. Yeah. Okay.
you
Good.
know. And so if they just walk on through the room, for me, I just kind of let it go. Okay, they're just passing through. If you see them there, to me, it's like it makes me uncomfortable. And if it's going to make me uncomfortable, you got to leave. So I've
Yeah.
taught them how to make them leave.
See, I love that because you have a strong sense of autonomy and you set your boundaries, right?
Right.
And it's clear. And then you don't interact with things you don't want to interact. It's like I kind of describe it going to a party. You get to choose who you want to talk with, and if the conversation's not going well, walk off.
Right. No, exactly. But if it's in your own house, you make them leave. I'm
That's
sorry.
true.
You
There
have
you
to
go.
leave.
There's a door. So I love that because these guides that you saw as a child were looking out for you and they were your protectors, and I love that. And so can we leeway into, how can parents have an open conversation with their children who are seeing guides and spirits? How can they start, instead of dismissing it, actually have an honest conversation with the kids?
Oh yeah. See, that's the whole thing. I've worked with my kids since younger because I never had anybody that can work with me. And my middle child, he's more of he'll hear them. He won't see them. He'll hear them.
Okay.
My youngest, he will see them, but he doesn't hear them. So
So
it's almost like they split it.
clairvoyant, you can see it more,
Their
claircognizant.
audience.
Yeah, that clairaudient. There you go. Okay.
Yeah, and for me, I see and hear them. So,
Okay.
I think they split it between the two of them. I don't know, 3 guys before they came here. I
Who
don't
gets this gift?
know. But, I've worked with them since little, and I think it's important when a child comes to you and they're distraught and they're saying, "Hey, I see this or that," is to listen to them. I think when you
I
you
love that. Yeah.
dismiss it, a lot of times it will shut them down.
Yes.
Because with me as a child, hearing this over and over again, it's in my mind, I learned to literally start closing off that ability
Right.
because in my
There,
mind,
there
there's
was no
something wrong
support.
with me. There's
Yeah.
no support, something
Yeah.
wrong. I really believe if you can start working with your kids while they're younger,
Mhm.
that it's going to grow their ability to be very strong and stand strong within themselves because they're not unsure of themselves and their abilities.
I love
And,
that. I
you
love
know,
that. Totally builds confidence, you know? And I appreciate because you're somebody who's gone through that and experienced that, and now you retrospectively be like, okay, what were the needs that I could have been met? I mean,
right.
everything obviously flows as it is. It's not that. It's just it's a matter of how can we empower now, knowing what we know.
Right. And
Yeah,
I really believe if they're young, have them draw pictures of it. That helps them
love
get it
that.
out. You know what I
Yes,
mean? Because if I
yes,
would have had that, it wouldn't have affected me so much. And I could have just, oh, it's just part of who I am and drew pictures and just let it all out. This is what I'm seeing. As they
yeah,
get older, you can have them start learning how to journal it.
yes.
Um, just to let it out. Because a lot of times it's not that it's bad experiences, unless you got some type of poltergeist that came into your house for some reason. And I've actually worked with people that do have kids and I've taught them how to actually start becoming empowered
Good.
with the power that you have within inside yourself to make them leave. This is your area. This is your area with your energy. You should be allowed to keep your energy here without them coming into it.
I love that. That's such. I mean, again, we say it's an empowering message, and it's just it builds confidence, and it's not dismissive. And you're listening to your child. I love the journaling, and I love the drawing, talking about it, asking about that being, like, okay, well, do you talk? What does it say? And just having that and not being afraid. I love that. So I don't think anybody's really said that yet here on planet Earth in those ways, and
Right.
and that I feel like needs to come out more now than ever because I feel like more people, you know, kids and children,
Or
they're going to start having more, and adults, like they're just having more experiences
the,
like these
the energies of this earth are just changing. And as they change,
rapidly.
we are going to be coming in as adults and children already born, already going to have innate abilities that
Yes.
we never have ever seen before.
And I feel like this is a conversation. This is like that groundbreaking conversation that's it is breaking it to start opening up to what's about to open for Earth and to be a mediator between those. So I really appreciate you, doing the
Right.
work that you do and facilitating those kind of conversations.
Right. And I want to add, if you have a child that's talking about alien experiences, have them do the same thing. Have them write it down, but the alien is a little bit different than spirit in the fact that you
Mhm.
can't you can't stop the alien side of it. All you can do is learn to deal with it so that it doesn't become trauma later on for the child.
Love that. Seriously, Eddie, this is like these are big topics, to not let it be trauma later on, to not close themselves off these innate natural abilities, these gifts, that they have,
Right.
and to really nurture them and not shy them away. I mean, this is going to be big.
And with your children, teach them the empowerment of basically, see, for me, when I was 12 years old, my belief was in Jesus. And I believe there's a lot of different ones you can use of spiritual guides, but whatever it takes, even within your own power, you have the power to say, I don't want you here. You
Yes.
must leave.
Yes.
And you have to believe it when you say it. That's the only difference between anybody. You
With
have to
conviction,
have that
right?
belief with conviction.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And so you can't just go, oh, please, please leave. No, no. You got to say it. You have the power. You know you have the ability. Everyone has the ability. And say, you must leave my property. You
Yes.
must leave my house. You must leave my apartment
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
You know that you have the power to do that because all of us do.
Yeah. Swearing's good too. I swear sometimes that helps.
You know what? That's just another way of getting it out.
It's right. So
However you need to get it out, you get it out. And sometimes, yeah, I've gone there. I'm like, no. I've seen things. I'm like, hell no. You're leaving now.
you can stay, but you're out of here. I love that. And that really builds the confidence of nurturing the child early on, but in adulthood too, right? Because how many adults have, and I work with people on this, where they're just like this doormat and they just allow all these things to come in their life, setting no boundaries. And it's just like, this is an exercise for you, that it may have come your way for you to start, putting a circle of unconditional love around you and protect yourself and stand in your power, right?
And the whole thing is, I'll cleanse my house. I like to use sage. That's
Yeah,
just one
sage.
way to
Yeah.
cleanse my house. But the whole thing is, all it takes is one person that's got a real negative connotation,
Yes.
and
Yeah, I know.
one person to come into that house or
Yeah.
dwelling, and they
Yeah.
could bring stuff in.
Yeah. And you can tell when you're intuitive, you can tell. It reminds me of, the Charlie Brown character, the guy who has the dust ball around him all the time.
Oh yes,
He's like, one of those, one of those minor, and we're talking about people here, right?
right.
Who may be in your home. And then after, when they leave, you just,
Time to sage again. But I'm just saying, for the normal person that doesn't experience
right.
the sensations to know when there's something brought in, just know
Yeah.
that if your house, say you're in your house, because anybody can feel this. Okay, as I taught my kids, you've got to listen to your gut. You don't listen to your mind.
That's it.
You
Yeah.
don't listen to your heart. You listen to your gut, and your gut is going to tell you if there's something wrong. So, say your house feels beautiful, and you have this big old party, and you have people over, but then afterwards, you're noticing your house doesn't feel quite right.
Hmm.
Look into it. There's so many different ways that you can cleanse your house, take that negative energy away.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it before where people will have friends and family over, and then when they leave, you're seeing a lot of bickering going on because there's a lot of stress now left in the house.
Right.
The energies have changed, and to
Hmm.
where you're no longer a coherent family. You're like fighting and bickering and arguing with each other.
Gotcha.
Normally you wouldn't be, and you may not even realize that it's part of the energy that was left there.
It's like vibrational residue or something that was kind of
Yes.
okay. So now I'm a big component of the heart, and you're a big component of the gut.
Mhm.
I mean, that's like, and I love that because it's like it's your second head, right? That they're saying
Right.
now.
Well, the reason I don't go with the heart is because the heart feels all the emotions.
Okay.
That's why I don't say the heart. If you're able to do that, that's fantastic. You know what I mean? But for me, sometimes I know that my emotions can cloud my judgment.
Right. Okay. That's okay. Thank
That is the only reason why I don't use the heart, because you get your feelings hurt, and I can get you into another story, but we'll talk about
you.
that
I'll
afterwards.
say
But
that for now.
we'll save that for after. But you can get your feelings hurt, and then you run off of your emotions versus listening to the truth, and your gut never lies. I know that's crazy, but your gut never
No, I
lies.
love that, and thank you for that because many times we deny our gut. So I really
You
love
get
that.
that nervous feeling in the pit of your stomach over a decision that you need to make.
Right.
You're not making the right one.
There you go. Review it. I love that. I love that. Okay. Okay. So I wanted to go over your near-death experiences in the sense because you had two of them, one in your childhood and one in your adulthood, and there was an experience that connected both. But if you could just go over that and
Okay.
just that feeling. I mean, I know it's a it's a big
Well,
topic, but
it is. The I'll try to kind of paraphrase with the
yeah.
first time because it's a little bit longer of an experience. But
Yes.
um, my husband had gotten sick. We're getting ready to go on a backcountry horseman ride, and he had gotten sick. And on the way there, he says, "I'll be fine by the next day." We went for the whole ride. We're riding out, um, in Moab. And anyways, we went for the whole ride. And the last day, we had some Dutch oven. And if you've ever had Dutch oven before, it's really good food. And but it was kind of rich. And so I thought it was rich. That's why I got sick. I never put it two and two together that my husband was sick on the way there, and maybe I got what he had. So that night I ended up getting sick. And so um, that night I got sick, and I'm laying there where we're camping, and I said to him, I'm laying there, I'm getting uncomfortable, and I hear, get up and go home. And I'm like, okay. I get up, I get sick again. My husband's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, 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 I'm fine. And I'm laying there, and I hear again, the second time, it's a little bit louder, get up and go home. And at this time, we didn't have kids. We had nothing at home that we should have to worry about. And I'm like, a little antsy. And my husband's like, what's going on? I said, I don't know. I just keep being told we need to go home. And he's like, well, come on, let's go. The other person brought our horses out. We can just go ahead and go. We can leave tonight. I'm like, no, this is when I was stubborn. I'm not like that anymore. I'm not like that as much. You know what I mean? And I'm like, there's no reason why we need to go. So I laying in bed. This time I'm barely about ready to fall asleep. This time it's so loud. It is screaming, get up and go home. And I
Wow.
literally sat up in bed and I'm just like shaking. And my husband was like, what's going on? I said, just being told to go home. By this time he's grabbing me, about ready to pull me out. Come on, let's go. And I'm like, no, 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 I'll be fine. I'll be fine. And so being stubborn the way I was, slept the night, got up the next morning. I couldn't even keep down water. I was so sick.
Wow.
And there was a guy in our group that was an older guy. He's since passed. Hi.
Oh,
But anyways, he was kind of really crotchety on our trip. And I was always taught that when somebody is kind of mean like that, you need to go out of your way and maybe do a little something nice. And it kind of calms it down some. And so anyways, what ended up happening was that morning I'm brushing out his horse, getting ready to go back. And we get in our car and we start headed back home. And back home was like a 4 hour drive. And I'm driving along and I told my husband, I said, if I tell you I'm gonna get sick, just pull over so I can get sick. So we're driving along and I'm just like, I'm gonna get sick. And we pull over and I remember leaning forward, and that's the last thing I remember doing. With my husband, he says what happened was I literally flopped backwards with my head on his lap, and all I could see was the whites of my eyes. And he's thinking that maybe I'm choking because I'm not breathing at all. And so he went ahead and went out the other side of the car and trying to pull me out, trying to do a little bit of the Heimlich, trying to see if I've got something in my throat. Did a finger sweep, nothing there. I'm still not breathing. He laid me down on the ground. And now he's starting at the mouth and trying CPR on me because I'm literally just not breathing at all. He says he was doing that for about 5 minutes and just totally freaking out. I don't know how long it really was because when you freak out, you just you don't know about the time wise. But anyways, he said he was doing it for 5 minutes, and then finally he got to where I was breathing,
okay.
but I was not conscious. And so just then a guy pulls over off the highway. He sees me on the ground with my husband. And my husband at the time, he's now EMT, but before he wasn't like that. And so normally for what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to get your knuckles and you rub it on the sternum. But at the time it was like in the movies. He picks me up and starts slapping me.
Yeah,
In the
right.
movies when they're trying to get somebody unconscious. And so the guy sees a limp body on the ground and this guy's slapping him. And she's going, oh my gosh, she's killed her. He takes off.
Okay.
That was what happened on my husband's side.
That's
So
terrible.
I know it is. That's what happened on my husband's side. But for me, all of a sudden, I found myself walking along a path. And I believe that people experience things so different when they die. People see
Yeah.
the ocean, the mountains, the desert.
Yeah, I
For
agree with
me,
you. There's different
yeah,
visions. Yeah.
I think a lot of times you go to the place where you're the most calm and brings you the most peace. And for me, it's the mountains. I love the mountains.
Me too.
And so I'm in the mountains and I'm walking along a dirt path. There's two paths there, but I'm only walking in one of them. And I remember it feeling kind of weird that I'm walking alone and there was nobody else in the path next to me. And I'm barefoot. I have like some type of gown on, maybe white pants. I can see my feet. So I know I'm barefoot that way, but everything is so green and the colors were so vivid. I can't describe it with human eyes. There's no way you could see
Yeah, I know what you mean by the
It's just,
vividness.
it was just gorgeous and just more vivid than your eyes normally see.
Yes.
There was not one weed. It was just totally beautiful. And I'm walking through the forest and I see this light at the end coming through these trees. And as I'm walking towards this light, all of a sudden I see orbs of light come out my chest. They just orbs of light. And everything that's coming out is things that I did here on this earth
Wow.
without asking for praise for it. It's the little things that you're doing. It's just the stuff you did to try to help somebody else. And you didn't say, hey, look at me. I'm a great person. Look what I did. It's just all those little things that I had done. I'm seeing it. Orbs of light. The last orb that came out was brushing out this guy's horse that had been very hard to deal with. And I just remember feeling so happy with all the things that I had done, just the little things that I'd done. And as I'm walking towards this light, I remember the feeling was so strong. It was so much love. And as I'm getting closer to this light, I can feel like the light is connecting with me and I'm starting to become one with this light. And as I'm becoming one with this light, the love is even stronger. And I'm walking closer and closer and closer to the light. And all of a sudden, it felt like somebody grabbed my cerebral cortex, the very base of my brain, and yanked me back into my body.
Okay.
And when I was yanked back into my body, I remember my husband trying to talk to me. And I thought I was talking, but I was hypoglycemic at the time, so my blood sugars had just totally tanked, is what had happened and what had caused all this. And so I think that I'm talking, but I guess all I was saying was because what happens is the blood sugar that you have left is going towards your heart, your lungs, and just that portion of the brain that can
Yeah.
help control the two.
Okay.
And so, anyways, that's what was going on with me. He ended up rushing me the closest place. At the time, only had a clinic and it only had one doctor in town. And it was Sunday, and that guy was actually going to be is the bishop of the church. He was supposed to be there. It's Sunday. It's the time that church is normally taking place. My husband comes roaring up and honking the horn, and he comes out of the home. The house was right next to the clinic. That's how they had it. It was in the same parking lot. And so he comes out of the house. They end up reeling me in. They couldn't get glucose into me through my veins because they had dropped. They ended up going through my ankle to get it into me. And the doctor afterwards, after we got it going, and he says I should have probably been in a coma, very, very easily in a coma. And so what happened was he says, this morning I went to go to church. I got into my vehicle. I realized I had forgotten my scriptures, went back into the house to grab the scriptures, came back out, realized I must have taken my car keys in there because my car keys were no longer there. Went back into the house to search for my car keys. He goes, one thing led to another, led to another. He says, I finally said, you know what? He says, there's got to be a reason why I'm not being able to get out of this house. I'm not coming in today. And he stayed there. And sure enough, that's when I showed up. But he said that if they would have had to go and search for him in church, bring him back, he said at very least I would have been in a coma, but more than likely already deceased because my blood sugar was that low.
Wow. So,
So
okay, hey, so you said there were two incidents. I know we're kind of running on out of time here a
right,
little bit, but there were two incidents. So
yeah,
the two incidents happened in your adulthood then, right?
it was an adult. Yes, was married, but before I had kids.
Okay.
The second incident was a lot faster type of situation. I had a surgery because I was in a car accident,
And
and
sorry, I just want to the church individual, how did he fit into that picture? I didn't quite that he wasn't.
um, if he was inspired to stay, because if he wouldn't have stayed, and they would have had to go search him out after my sugar had dropped so low that I would have probably died because
Oh,
they
okay.
would not have been able to get him back to the clinic fast enough to get the glucose in my system.
So he was the doctor.
He was the doctor. The
Okay.
bishop was the doctor.
Okay, so
The
that's why I
bishop
didn't.
was the
Okay, I
doctor.
was like,
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. Okay, so he was
No,
the doctor. I got you. Okay, done.
the
I'm
bishop
good.
was the doctor also,
Okay,
and so yeah, if
okay.
if he wouldn't have been there that day, um, I probably would have been dead. So there's a reason for me being here,
Of
you
course, of
know.
course.
And but I can go through the other one. I'll speed it up a little bit. The other one was easy. I had had a surgery. I had a feeling before the surgery, that feeling kind of like, should we do this? But I couldn't go, oh, I have a bad feeling. Let's not have surgery. It was from the car accident. And anyways, the surgery went fine. I was in the recovery room and they were short staffed that day. And to make a long story short, they ended up overdosing me on morphine because they didn't chart it. And so I remember the feeling at that time of, I remember a male voice, a couple female voices, and they're, Annie, Annie, stay with us, stay with us. But I didn't recognize who they were, and I didn't care because I'd already left my body. It was a feeling of just being totally free. And I see myself going up to the ceiling. I go through the lights in the ceiling. It was just this beautiful feeling. I just didn't care. And I let myself go where I was being taken to. And when I was little, we're going to go back to that story real quick. When I was little, I used to freak out because I would hear like people talking really, really fast, you know? And so, anyways, are you saying something? Because I can't hear you, Cam. Did you turn yourself off?
Sorry, I did. Sorry, I was just gonna say that conversation you heard as a child, it's like 10,000 conversations forwarded into 5 seconds.
Right. And so they're talking really, really fast. And I would get bits and pieces when I was kids, it as the, little words, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. I knew they were talking about somebody, but it kind of freaked me out because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. And this time my near-death experience, I'm floating up and I'm floating up to this ground that's not a ground. My head's just kind of slowly coming up. As my head is slowly coming up, I see people in robes, like human people in robes.
Right.
And they're standing around. I would only consider them maybe guides.
Yeah.
And they're standing around talking. And that's what it sounds like. The same thing I used to freak out with hearing as a kid. And I realized the reason I'm hearing that is because I'm hearing the speed of thought, not the speed that comes out of your mouth.
Right.
The speed that comes out of your mouth is a lot slower than the way you think. So if you're telepathic and you're connecting with them, you're hearing that, but it's the speed of thought that's going on between the two of them. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I was hearing when I was a kid. Now I knew what it was. And one of the older men turns and he looks at me and he puts his hand on my head. He goes, telepathic though. He goes, not yet. And he pushed me back. And it's that same cerebral cortex being yanked back into the body. I came to, I had been intubated. I had a tube down my throat. I'm freaking out, trying to pull the tube out and everything else. So that time was a little bit faster. It's like, not yet. But I did learn something from it. So that was kind of cool.
No, thank you for sharing that. That's an ineffable experience. You can't really, what you describe in words to connect it. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up here with one question. We're gonna finish up with what we like to call the transparent beings. I thought
Okay.
this was really brilliant because it's about connecting all these stories together and they kind of seamlessly flow. Like even with your near-death experience in your adulthood, it provided an answer in your childhood of what you heard, right? And how it's all connected. So what happened was, this is Annie and ours, my second meeting with her. And in our first, when we chatted, I was casually discussing clear beings that I saw in my room. And they look like really translucent, the kind on the hot day that, where you're a kid and you're leaning on the road or on the driveway and you can see that mist of steam kind of, so to speak. So I remember laying on my bed, and this is in adulthood. And you get that feeling where somebody's looking at you. It's like, that there's somebody else in the room and you're being observed, right? Even though you may not physically see it at the time. So I call this man Spider-Man. He was in the corner of my room and he was just watching me, right? Just gently. And then when he confirmed that he knew it was me, he got all excited. It was, oh my God, you're here. Oh my God, we finally met. And he jumped on the bed and it felt like he was licking me like a puppy dog would lick me. I know it's kind of weird, but it was just that jovialness and that kind of like you haven't seen a family member in eons. That's what it felt like, and they're coming from the airport and you're like, you start crying and you're just so happy to see that individual. So that's what it felt like. And I was, I'm like, I'm not that touchy-feely at that time. I was like, get off me, right? Like, what is this? And then I, I remember waking up, although it was kind of like you see the theta state between sleep and awake and that kind of thing. And my dog at that time was right at my feet. And I thought, okay, maybe he just licked my face and I'm making it all up, because I journaled it as well, this incident. So I really appreciate you mentioning journaling. So I went and I was, kind of lifting up my feet. He was knocked out. There was no way he was going to wake up. I poked at him, like nothing. He was just, it wasn't him. And then I thought, okay, so this individual is definitely a visitor. And then what I appreciate is how Annie picked up on that story, which you'll see, and provides more insight on these translucent beings, which is really like a miraculous story. And then how it's like almost triple, I call it the triple validity, because I had the experience with the being, you had the experience with the same beings, and your client had the same experience with these beings. And we didn't even know each other 2 weeks ago. So please,
Right.
please share after I said that
Right.
your experience with these beings.
Well, as I was telling you, the first time I saw them, I was actually working out at the gym and I was on the rowing machine,
Mhm.
and your feet are tied into the rowing machine, rowing back and forth. And I saw, like, I think it was 5 of them, and they're just standing there. And I'm just kind of rowing and just watching them, just looking at them. And I'm like, am I seeing that? I'm looking around to try to see if anybody else is seeing them, but everybody's just going along their day, and I'm just kind of looking at them like, okay, that's kind of cool. I never seen that before. That's cool. So I'm just watching them rowing away, and it wasn't until one moved forward and he starts coming to put his hand on my foot. As soon as that happened, that kind of freaked me out. I'm just like, don't touch me. I kind of like what you're talking about. But I hurried up and I well, it's Velcroed, unvelcroed my feet from the rowing machine. And I'm like backpedaling backwards. And I'm thinking, if anybody's seeing me, they're probably thinking I'm on drugs or something, because I'm moving back away like I'm afraid of something really quick. And so I just kind of let it go. And you're on mute again, Pam.
Sorry, I was telling Annie, could you imagine being on security camera and watching, because they don't see that you see it, right? But you're just doing this on
Oh yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking, oh, they're gonna think I'm crazy or something. And so, anyways, that was my first experience with them, and I'd see them every now and then, just kind of. And I've seen so many different things, and honestly, I don't go, oh wow, look what I'm seeing, because I see stuff all the time.
yeah,
And so it wasn't until I was getting ready to have a client. I won't go too much into detail about the client,
for
but
sure.
I was getting ready to have a QHHT session with the client, and 1 week before our session, I have this weird dream, and I have no idea why I have this dream. I dream that I'm in another country, my whole family's in this other country, and everybody freaked out because they see this huge UFO craft coming in. It comes in and it docks against the building, which was higher on the mountainside that we were at in this other country. And all of a sudden, what comes off the craft is an older guy, and then there's a bunch of other people with him. They look
And did he
human,
look human?
but he looked totally human.
Okay.
But the interesting thing was he talked really fast. so so when he was speaking English, but it was coming out really, really quick. And
Okay.
he was basically telling everybody not to be afraid. And there was a younger man behind him, and he had some like a Geiger counter thing that kind of went back and forth. And you can hear it going boop, boop, boop as they're walking through the crowd. And everybody just kind of opened up and allowing them through this crowd. And I'm just standing there on the side, and all of a sudden it went boop, and it pointed at me, and I'm like, uh-oh, what the heck did I do?
You're like,
you
I don't
know?
have it.
And so the older guy looks, and he looks, and he like looks into my eyes. And I really believe that eyes really are the window to soul.
Yeah,
But
I love how you
he looks
emphasize
into
that.
my eyes. He looks into my eyes and he stares at me and he goes, "It's you." And I'm like, "It's you, me, what? What do you mean it's me? It's you." And he explains that they had been looking for me, that I was sent here from them,
Okay.
meaning to Earth, that they put me here on Earth because they knew that they would be back, and that he was really because he was looking for me.
Okay.
And I'm just like, okay. He says, "We want you to go with us." I'm like, all right, well, I need my whole family. And but most of my family was there in my dream. So anyways, I said, well, what about my mother? Because my mother is now alone. I'm like, what about my mother? Like, oh, don't worry, we've already gotten her. And she was actually already on the craft. It's kind of funny. She was kind of passed out on the craft. but anyways, he says, but I need to prepare you for what we look like. And I'm thinking, well, you look human to me.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And he's all, we don't really look like this. He says, we would be what you would call transparent beings. And I'm like, transparent beings? I said, like the ones I saw at the gym now. The gym actually happened. That's a real experience. This is
That
a
was the
dream.
real experience. Yeah,
I'm
this
bringing
is the
real
dream. And
experience into the dream.
I had the real experience. Yeah. So yeah.
Right. So it was a real experience to the dream. And I'm just like the ones at the gym, he goes, oh yeah, they were the ones looking for you. They were our guards sent out to find you. So anyways, make a long story short, he says they're transparent beings. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So we go on to the craft, and sure enough, it was like a human suit they removed, but they're literally transparent beings.
Like kind of
And
zipping up
so I
the
thought, gosh, yeah, kind of like, I don't know how they stepped in the machine and it just literally removed the suit.
Okay.
It
Okay.
was like this energy that was coming down. And
Wow.
so, anyways, I was like, wow, that was a real weird dream. And a lot of times I will journal dreams because dreams tend to have, if they don't mean exactly what you're dreaming, there's
Yeah.
meaning in it
Yeah, there's messages
for
in there.
something
Thank
else.
you for sharing that. Yes.
And so, anyways, a week later, I go and I have a session with the client. Now, the client and I had never met before. We had never had conversations before about
Yeah.
anything else.
Just like Annie and
And
I.
he goes, so he goes to a past life.
Okay.
And in his past life, he's human, but he is in charge of all the different portals that are here on this earth that allow you to go to different dimensions within this earth.
Mhm.
And so him and a bunch, there was others like him. You were talking about how portals come together and what they do and everything else. Well, normally in our sessions, we will take you when you're in another life to your death experience to find out how you died. Because a lot of times there's a lot of stuff you hold on to that you don't let go of during that experience. So we take him to the death experience, and he goes, "Oh no!" I'm telling him, "Okay, well, how did you die?" He goes, "Well, I didn't actually die." And I'm like, "Okay, well, explain what's going on." He says, "I see a ship, and he's at the ocean at this time. And I'm thinking it's like a sailing ship or something else. I have him describe it, and it is actually a light ship in the sky." He says, "No, all I do is I shed my human body, and I go right up to the ship."
Okay.
And I said to him, "Shed your human body? Well, what do you look like now?" He goes, "I'm a transparent being." And I'm just like,
Just like your
no.
dream. You cannot make this up. The synchronicity of
I was like, oh my gosh.
those exact words from your dream.
Exact words. I'm a transparent being. But the whole thing is that he shed his human suit, just like in my dream. And I'm like, this is just, well, how do you explain that?
And
You
you even
know?
said that, I love how you said that maybe the lights, how the human eye spectrum can only see.
Right. Yeah, I have a feeling that they're not really transparent, even though our eyes see them as transparent. I feel that we're not able to see it to the light spectrum that they
That's
really
it.
are. And that is exactly how we perceive them. But in actuality, I don't believe that they actually look like that.
Okay, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to touch on that, with you as a practitioner as well, and your own experiences, you kind of connect with different galactic family members, right? It's not just this one experience. It really is a testament that we are multidimensional beings. We kind of hear it, but you
Well,
do you do connect with different star
I
families,
I I think for me, I get that affirmation more of when I went to the central sun. I
Okay.
understand that we all came from the central sun,
Okay.
and that even though we are put into different bodies or what we perceive as energy bodies, alien bodies, that we are all the same family. It doesn't matter what you look like,
I love that.
but
Yeah.
we literally are created for learning, for information, to become stronger, to become more of what we're supposed to be, what we're sent here to be,
Is,
you know?
would you say that is that your message to the audience today? If you could
We
give
are
one.
all I would say we're all one family. And think about it, there's certain family members that you don't agree with, that do things that you don't like them to do,
Yeah.
that you wish weren't part of your family but are. And that is pretty much, that would describe actually
That's a
everything.
galactic family right there.
There is your galactic family. There's always going to be ones that don't view things the way you view it,
Yeah.
that don't want to do things the way that you want to do it. And I wouldn't say one's better or one's worse. You know, you're going to have one that is not very happy and is going to do malicious stuff, or you're going to have one that's really happy and trying to help everybody become more of what they're supposed to be.
Yes.
But we're all one family, no matter how you want to look at it.
I love that.
Sorry, you're stuck with kind of like
That
your own family.
that is such a brilliant message, I think, and especially during these times, right? To put out there
Yeah.
now. I mean, that's imperative, and I hope people keep that in their forefront as much as they can, you know, when dealing with people. And I love your, I'll call it your random acts of kindness, that even with your near-death experience, you had that reflection of the little things.
And that's the most important thing, is that people need to remember it's the little things change and snowball and become greater. The little things that you do in life that just maybe takes a little bit of burden off of somebody, the little things you do to even smile at somebody who's having a bad day.
Mhm.
A lot of times, just a little smile and act of kindness will
Yeah,
change and shift their energy to
love that.
be able to help them.
Love
So
that.
it's important.
All right. Well, thank you, Annie, so much for being on the show today. Seriously, just I feel like mind blown, yet at the same time, there's such a familiarity with everything that you've said, you know, like a homecoming. So I thank you for that. And could you let the guests know where they can find you?
If they wanted to message me, they can message me at light within you dot well at outlet.
Is it,
I'm sorry. It's
well,
not
your
that.
website, you have your website.
I'm trying to like my website is lightwithinyou.us.
Okay, done. And
Is
I will link that in the
just
bio for people to connect with you. And so there you go. Thank you so much, Annie.
okay.
All
All
right.
right. Thank you, Tim.
Okay, bye.